All right, welcome everyone to today's virtual event. My name is Ashley Cavender, the Manager of Alumni Services for Syracuse University's Institute for Veterans and Military Families, and I will be moderating today's session. Our first speaker today is Dr. Mike Haynie, Syracuse University's Vice Chancellor and Executive Director and founder of IVMF. Mike, thank you for taking the time to be with us today and to help kick off this discussion. I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Ashley. And I'll start off by thanking everybody who's joined us today. I also want to thank Ashley and the entire IVMF team for putting this together. I will keep my comments brief, but enjoy and look forward to the opportunity to answer any questions folks have. I started this work not long after I left active duty as an Air Force officer back in 2006, and I came to Syracuse University as an entrepreneurship professor, and when I got here, my vision was pretty simple as it relates to this work, and that is leverage, the intellectual capital and the relationships and the brand, if you will, of Syracuse University, really to have an impact on the community of veterans and military families across the United States. And I was fortunate that I landed at a university, really unbeknownst to me when I was getting out of the military, that has a proud tradition of serving veterans and military families that really goes all the way back to World War I. But it was after World War II that was transformative for this institution. We, as a university, welcomed almost 17,000 returning World War II veterans to our university, transforming Syracuse University from what was a very regional liberal arts college to a globally relevant research institution, and it's really been on the shoulders of that history, if you will, that we've worked the past 12 years or so to once again position Syracuse University, I would argue, as one of the leading academic institutions in the country serving veterans and their families. It has been a remarkable journey along the way for both the IVMF and for Syracuse University. From what was one small program that we launched in our business school in 2007, focused on veterans with disabilities and entrepreneurship, to about 3 years later, seeding the idea to create an academic institute, the Institute for Veterans and Military Families. And then from there, just a few years later, to a portfolio of programs across the IVMF that are routinely and annually serving more than 10,000 veterans and military families each year. And as all that's happening for the IVMF, really changing and transforming culture here at Syracuse University, such that today, we enroll at Syracuse University in our degree programs, almost 1,400 military connected students, veterans, active duty military, as well as our ROTC cadets. We have the longest continuously running Army ROTC program in all of America, founded in 1919 and has never shut down. Matter of fact, immediately following this convening, I'm going to transition to what has to be our first ever virtual commissioning ceremony for our graduating Army ROTC cadets, soon to be lieutenants. As in my view, as we look out into our near future, there are challenges ahead for the community that we serve. For better or worse, at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, my boss, the Chancellor of Syracuse University, put me in charge of the university's coronavirus response. So I've had a front row seat, I think, over the course of the last 2.5 months, to get a view of what some of those challenges might be, both in our communities and then in the context of the military and veteran community that the Institute exists to serve. That said, from the perspective of the IVMF, I think we're ready. I think we're ready because we've done this before. And one of the interesting parallels to what we're experiencing right now, the IVMF's early years, our formative years, were the years immediately following the 2008 recession. that's where we learn to do what it is we do. And I think for a serving organization, an organization whose core mission is service, I framed for my team not too long ago that what we're experiencing today, collectively, what we're experiencing today is a real opportunity for people who are drawn to service. And that is true of all of the folks that work at the IVMF. And that is unfortunately because there will be increased need. There will be challenges that the things we do can help resolve and have real impact on people, on families, on communities. So for that, I'm actually hopeful and excited. You know, I do think this is a time for us to redouble our efforts. We're fortunate as an organization that I think we're well prepared to transition to this new normal without missing a beat in the context of the programs we run, the research that we do. I think you're going to hear a little more about, for example, some of those programs from Mike Bianchi, about some of that research from Nick Armstrong. But you know, really, my role today is to reinforce to all of you our commitment. You know, we are here, we will be here, and we will be here to support veterans and their families for the long term. You know, and I hope many years after I am long retired and fly fishing somewhere in Montana, this institute will still be serving veterans and their families. So with that, maybe I'll stop talking and let the folks that do the work every day tell their story. So thank you very much, Ashley.
Thank you, Mike. And now I want to pass it over to our Chief Operating Officer, Maureen Case. Maureen, thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Ashley. I'm really excited to be a part of all this, and I echo Mike's words about keeping it brief. First and foremost, though, I do want to say that I hope that this finds all of you who are listening today safe and well, and that your families and those you care about are safe and well. This has certainly been an unprecedented time for all of us who have been touched in one way, shape, or form by this global pandemic. And our hope for all of you is that folks are safe and well and continue to be that way. As Mike said, I join him in being very proud of this team that does this work each and every day. My role for the next few minutes is to tell you about what the IVMF has been doing over the course of the last couple of months. I will do that in a very high level and then turn it over to the folks who really do each and every day and can give you those details. But I think that what the IVMF has done first and foremost is what Mike and his team did from the very beginning of the start of the Institute and the first programs that were launched, which is to understand the needs of those we serve and adapt our programs to address those needs. And within a very short period of time after states started to shut down across the country, we moved our programs online, and I would dare say that those who were program participants barely felt the impact of all of that. We have an incredible team behind the scenes that was well prepared to make that transition. The other thing we did, in addition to moving all of our programs and services online, is to really look at the content of what we offer. And I think this is really true whether we're talking about in the entrepreneurship portfolio that you'll hear from Misty about in a moment, or with respect to Onward to Opportunity or our community-based services. And we really looked at what content we were offering and what do we need to change to answer the call to those that we serve with regard to the questions they had with regard to the PPP small business things, or what they needed to do to address their training needs for a very, very quickly evolving job market. So I think that what you'll hear from the team in a few minutes is that we've done what we've always done, which is to take a few minutes, understand what you needed, and then figured out how we could answer those. And I'm going to put the call out to all of you. You know, as my team has often heard me say, I can't fix what I don't know. And so if there are things that you need, topics that you'd like to see us address, whether it's in our entrepreneurship small business work or in the training world or some of the other work that we do, please let us know, because we are in the end here to serve you, and that is how we will be around for the long term, as Mike said. Just one more moment I wanted to spend in particular on our community-based work, which is hallmarked by our America Serves program. For those who are not aware, America Serves is a network of coordination centers and communities across the country that look to make it easier for veterans and their families to access and navigate care and services. Obviously, with what we have all experienced with this pandemic, there's no greater time for ensuring that communities are well positioned to serve not just veterans and their families, but everyone. So our team, our America Serves team, the community-based services team, has been busy working with all of our networks across the country to ensure that they're able to address the needs in their communities. From the very start, we had some networks that were not enabled to work remotely, so we positioned them to do that. So from the very beginning, we've been trying to make sure that they have the tools and resources that they need to address the questions and the requests for service that are coming that way, and we'll continue to do that. I think the other thing that's been important about our community-based work is that we're trying to work with others who are doing this work in communities, whether it's Combined Arms in Houston or America's Warrior Partnership in the Southeast. You know, the whole idea here is that we are all trying to work better together to serve veterans and their families in our communities. So this is another way that you can reach out to us and let us know what you might need. And if we don't, if it's not something that we do, we have a whole network of folks out there that are positioned to receive the requests for those services. So with that, Ashley, I'm going to turn it back over to you to get it back to the rest of the team. And like Mike, stand ready to answer any questions that you might have, and everyone stay safe and well.
Thanks, Maureen. So now we're going to take a little bit deeper dive into a few of IVMF's research and program portfolios. So we'll first hear from Dr. Nick Armstrong, Senior Director of Research and Policy. We'll next move over to Misty Stutzman-Fox, Director of Entrepreneurship and Small Business. And then we'll hear from Mike Bianchi, Senior Director of Education and Career Training. So with that, first, we'll go over to you, Nick.
Great. Thank you, Ashley. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's great to be able to spend a little time this afternoon to share a little bit more about what we're doing in response to the current situation. I can say from the IVMF research side of the house, we've really never been busier. We're actively responding to the current situation, I would say, in a number of different ways. Of course, we have had a number of different research and evaluation projects underway as the situation unfolded over the last several months. I can say for the most part, all of those continue as is, and we're adapting those to the current situation. For example, some of our policy work that's been ongoing, we continue to engage with policymakers, both in Washington and at the state and local level, as well as VSOs, just to understand where the latest priorities are and how we can, as the IVMF and as a team, help continue to inform that work and understand what those latest needs are to be able to help drive policy action. Other projects we have underway that are folded under our entrepreneurship portfolio. We've had an active survey that actually just opened up as this all unfolded, looking at military-connected entrepreneurs. And so we've adapted that work as well to incorporate any potential impacts that COVID may be having on veteran and military-connected entrepreneurs. So we're taking full advantage to actually understand what those impacts are with this active work. Also, other projects we have underway focused on pathways to education for those that may be in transitioning out of the military or already in the workforce and are looking to pursue higher education or to pursue other career paths. We've had some active research in that area, and now we're trying to get a handle on what the changes in the labor market look like, as well as in higher education, as Mike talked about at the top. And what are those impacts, and how can we be helping folks position themselves for continued success in their careers in the long term. And also, in the immediate, we've been reacting to the current situation. As Mike mentioned, we exist to help inform the work that we do and help inform the work that others do and empower them with insights. And so we actually revived and dusted off an activity that we used to do probably 5-6 years ago, focused around the unemployment. And so, as we all know, the veteran unemployment has reached an all-time low, really, for the last 20 years, leading up into February, March of this year. And so now we're dusting off our monthly unemployment situation reports. We just released one for this past month, as well as leveraging existing partnerships. So one also Military Times. We've had a relationship with Military Times to conduct snapshot polls over the last several years. We just released results from that poll, which we conducted in late March. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second, but really trying to get a sense of what is going on the ground and how can we inform the work that we're doing, both from an employment standpoint, but also small business and entrepreneurship training, as well as community needs. And then also, we're looking ahead at what the future lies in terms of how we can continue to help inform not just us, but others. We're exploring new partnerships and emerging opportunities with some researchers at Northwestern, as an example, in the Army Research Office, looking at how community-based networks are evolving and responding to providing coordinated services and care in communities. And so we're excited to get that work off the ground here in the coming months. Also, some active collaborations with the Department of Veterans Affairs. One, for example, is called the ETS sponsorship program. So we're supporting a VA program evaluation, helping to provide transition supports to those that are in transition and connecting them to networks of care, including America Serves, as well as exploring some partnerships with the VA Center for Health Equity Research to look at overlaps and gaps between some of the community-based work we're doing and where veterans and family members are utilizing services in communities and how they overlap with the VA. So I just want to transition just for a few minutes just to talk a little bit about some of the latest polling that we did with Military Times. So we launched a poll last week of March to get the first baseline snapshot of what community perceptions look like. So we polled using the Military Times subscriber base, which is over 100,000 subscribers, and came up with a response of about 4,000, and it's about a 50-50 mix of both active duty as well as veterans that participated in this poll. We actually, for both of those two subgroups, we applied a weighting methodology to help correct for any imbalances between demographic representation in the sample. But we released the first brief from this poll that first looked at questions related to perceptions of folks in the community as to the threat of COVID to their, both from a national perspective, looking at things about threats to the overall economy, perceived threats to national security, and then perceived threats at the community and individual level. And by and large, the findings from that really were not surprising to us. So you saw that both active duty and veterans, looking across multiple demographic groups, saw the current situation as a significant or moderate to significant threat national security, the economy, as well as public health. And then as you dig down and start looking more at the family and community level, we start to see differences in terms of how the situation is impacting families. One thing in particular is, we're seeing that both women active duty and women veterans are perceiving greater need and greater threat to access to resources, access to healthcare and behavioral healthcare. And so I think what that does is that helps inform our work in terms of thinking through how can we position or help others in communities position resources and provide greater access or awareness and outreach for those that may need those. We're about to drop actually the second brief from this report, looking at a separate set of questions that we asked folks really around different types of needs for services. So we asked folks the types of services that they may need, everything from benefits and claims assistance to family support to financial assistance, really across a range of over a dozen different categories. And we're excited to release that work a little bit later this week. But even that, you could see differences between veterans and active duty. Just for an example, one of the top expressed needs and concerns were around access to medical care, and this was both for veterans and active duty family members as a consistently cited top need. But looking at differences between those groups, veterans actually saw beyond medical care, community support, access to benefits and financial assistance as their top needs at the moment. Compare that to active duty service members. They saw K through 12 education related resources, so with children and family members at home as another type need, followed by community support, as well as post-secondary education and training. So that signals to us that there's a rising demand for professional development and training opportunities for those on the active duty side, or at least seeking that out right now. And it's, as far as tying that back to some of the analytics work that we do with the Institute, and I'm not going to steal my colleagues' thunder, but that's another thing that we're actively looking at those that are pursuing our programming and others, just to be able to respond and to really know what the changing demands are and how we can position to meet the changing needs that are already present, and how they're going to continue to evolve, and how we can evolve to meet those needs. So with that, I look forward to your questions at the end. I'll pass it back to Ashley and my teammates, and look forward to speaking more with all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick. Misty, I'll turn it right over to you.
Hey there. So Misty Sussman-Fox, and as mentioned earlier, I am the Director for Entrepreneurship and Small Business here at the Institute for Veterans and Military Families. So as many of you all know, you're graduates, the Arsenal has a portfolio of 9 programs that have been developed to meet you where you're at on your entrepreneurial journey. And right now, many of you are in your living rooms and in your home offices and anywhere else you can set up a laptop. So that is now where we're meeting you. Many of our programs have been postponed. Our in-person programs have obviously been postponed. And so we've launched many things in terms of how we respond to COVID. So the first thing that we launched was, of course, our COVID website. So if you go to ivmf.syracuse.edu/COVID business, you can see all of the resources and updates that we have curated for your small business so that you can stay as up to date as possible as you and your company move forward. And in addition to all of that response, we also launched the Taking Care of Business During a Pandemic webinar series. We know that every single week things are changing, whether it was how do I apply for the Paychex Protection to now how do I get that forgiven, or who's even eligible during all of this. So every other week we have partnered with the SBA and a litany of other individuals so that we can deliver the most timely resources that we can. And so each time you sign up for those webinars, it's really important as you do to kind of put in what your top challenges are, because that's how we curate every single agenda, and then how we decide what we're going to do moving forward. I know that, a lot of small business owners, things have been day to day, so we're making sure to get those resources into your hand. I also know there's a lot of questions. We have always had, high touch in residency programs, and that doesn't change. We know that right now, and I saw it in the chat, that, starting a small business is right at the forefront of many people's minds. Guiding their small business to or through this is also at the forefront of their mind. So we will have online training. For those of you who are EBV applicants that are sitting there now, who are supposed to go through a program this summer or even in the fall, you'll be getting an email in short order about an online program that we're going to bring right to you, so that you can go ahead and get started and get that foundation laid for your small business. For those of you who are also looking at how to stay engaged throughout time, we'll be launching a series of online workshops that alumni and small business owners can take part of. How to look at your website and what can you do differently around that, or how to up your SEO and whatever you need to do around that, as well as legal questions, because I know there's a lot of people that are kind of wondering what they need to do for their employees. So we're going to continue, as we move from response into recovery and then into resurgence, of course, meet you where you're at with your business. We're going to continue to, create those resources and have them online for you. Any in person, you'll be hearing from us if you have not already, as we continue to monitor the situation state to state and the safety of, all of our participants, of course. I think, a big thing to note is that moving forward, we know that industries are going to be refined. New industries are going to be defined. We know that people are going to shop differently and in different ways. And we're going to continue to make sure that the tools and resources that we put forward help you to do so. So if you're looking for any of the information that we've had, all of our webinars have been recorded. All of the tools that we've hung on that website, so you can always check there for what's already been done, and then also what's coming up. I know that Nick and has covered a lot of what we're doing with Kaufman, but I think that more so than ever, it's important for us to hear from you all in terms of what challenges and barriers your companies are facing, so we continue to make sure that those programs are there. And then just at the top, and I'll say it one more time, if you are an EBV program that has been postponed or canceled due to COVID, we'll make sure to get you the information that you need about getting into either the online workshops and programs that we're going to be hosting, so that you can take advantage of those. But you will still be eligible to then apply and be in programs next summer too, especially if you're already accepted. So, don't worry, we're going to make sure that we still have those resources for your business. And I think another great thing that IVMF has had, or that the Arsenal team has been able to do during this time, is not only take a lot of those programs and those webinars that we've been doing, but also our Boots to Business. We're teaching Boots to Business all over the world right now. So from still over Zoom and Blackboard Collaborate. So it's really exciting. We'll continue to work with small business owners. We know you all have a lot of questions and you're facing a lot of things right now. And just understand that we as the Arsenal team and as the broader IVMF will be with you every step of the way. Thanks. Ashley, over to you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Misty. And last but not least, Mike Bianchi, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Ashley, and thanks to my colleagues, Nick and Misty. I appreciate the work that you guys are all doing. So again, good afternoon, and thanks for everyone who's attending today. I want to thank everybody on the call, as well as all my colleagues who are on the call and the support staff from the IVMF who really make everything that we do happen every day. So thanks to all of them. So I'm here really to talk a little bit today about the Onward Opportunity, which is a skill bridge program for the Department of Defense, which provides employability training and industry recognized credentialed certifications to transition in service members, to their spouses, to members of the National Guard and Reserve, and to veterans and their spouses as well. It's a large program now that we are at 19 different installations and communities around the country, from Pearl Harbor out in Hawaii up to Fort Drum in New York, and from Joint Base Lewis McChord outside Seattle down to Jacksonville, Florida, and all points in between. and really been delivering world-class content and the employability skills through our teammates that are located on the ground, and also doing a virtual delivery of that to the tune of over 1,000 on average per month who are coming into the program. And since really the COVID situation started in March, we've been able to actually pivot our in-person installation delivery, 24 cohorts in all, into a virtual delivery system without losing any of the content, the intent, or the impact. And in fact, we've seen at these locations that are at the 19 locations, but they do serve 70 communities, 70 different large or military installations surrounding them. We've actually seen an increase in enrollment over the last 3 months. So, our impact and our immediate pivot to this really has, I think Maureen mentioned it earlier, has left us as one of the few operating SkillBridge programs that are out there. And through the great work of the teams on the ground and their partnership with the local installations, we were able to enroll nearly 1,000 people over the last 2 months, in addition to the over 3,000 that we've enrolled online since March. So that's been our response to the COVID. We also understanding the nature of this and the unknowns for the military, the families and the military community. Immediately, our enrollment advisement team came together with our operational team, and we immediately extended all the folks that were inside of their cohorts and gave them an extension to complete their coursework, understanding that the challenges that they and their families were facing. So there was a lot of immediate and quick response that has allowed the teams to continue to deliver using virtual, either Blackboard, Zoom, several different methodologies to, all using the adult learning model and an online delivery model to really bring in the community partners and to bring in employer partners to do virtual career fairs, virtual employer panels, bringing in experts from around their local community to still deliver impactful content that helps and facilitates the folks who are in that transition process, and not just for the ones that are transitioning, but for the veterans in the class as well, who may be looking to improve their work situation. And so the impact that we've been able to provide over the last 45 to 60 days has increased enrollment. So we have over almost 3,500 newly enrolled since March, in addition to the 3,000 alumni licenses that we gave. So when we look at our participants over the course of the last 5 years, as COVID unfolded, we made the decision with the support of the IVMF leadership to provide alumni licenses so that for those that were impacted either negatively or they were going to have a problem in the future, we wanted them to have the ability to prepare and do those things that they needed to do now to prepare for the workforce that's going to face us on the other side. And so we've actually provided roughly 3,000 licenses to our alumni to provide them those professional development opportunities. And so in closing, I want to talk about where we're going to go as we continue to work our way through this. And we're going to be able to update our curriculum. We're going to update our offerings so that we can match what the requirements are going to be as we come out on the other side of the COVID response. We also want to provide more virtual content at more installations. So we have a lot of opportunity to grow, to expand, and to work with our employer partners to explore new curriculum pathways so that we can meet the emerging demands and employment needs of our employer partners. And lastly, we certainly want to capitalize and we want to be able to utilize and to provide to our alum part of the expanded alumni services that the IVMF provides to all the folks that have come through. And we're going to use all this, and we're going to capitalize on Nick's and his team's research and the resources and the dedication of all of IVMF to continue to provide and improve Onward Opportunity as we move forward. So I think, Ashley, that puts me at my 5 minutes. So thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Mike. And thank you all for sharing just such great information and really valuable insights for everyone attending here today. So I would ask all of our speakers that are on the call still to, you can stay on mute for now, but if you would turn your camera on as we transition over to our live Q&A section with our audience. So we're going to open it up to questions from all of you. So please, as a reminder, you can either type your questions into the chat box, you can raise your hand to ask your question live, and we'll get to as many as we can in the next about 20 minutes that we have here today. So first, I did have a few come through so far, but I will first start with, and anyone feel free to jump in, is do you believe the impacts and responses that we've discussed here today will be temporary or permanent changes as we look to the future?
I'm happy to take that. I think it's going to depend, but I just see Dr. Haynie jumped in. Mike, you want to take it?
Well, Maureen, I would not want to preempt your answer because you're smarter than I am. So go ahead.
I don't know about that, but I think that some may be temporary and some may be permanent. I think it really depends on how conditions and circumstances evolve over the next several months. And so I think that what we stand ready to do is to respond accordingly and adjust accordingly our programs and services so we can meet the needs of those we serve. Mike?
So this has been the period of the last couple of months has been a challenge, as an academic and intellectually. It's also been it's been fascinating for me because, while I don't get to talk about it much, what I study for a living as an academic, I study discontinuous change. I study transformation, and we're operating today. The IVMF, all of us as individuals are making decisions about the future in the face of an inherently unknowable future. That level of uncertainty that you can't even really predict. And one of the things that I think to this question that I come to realize is there are certain things that we've experienced over the course of the last few months that will not change because this experience has served to change people's preferences. This experience has served to change how people think about work, about social interaction. There are plenty of folks who, for example, while never in their past have engaged in online learning, now are thriving in this environment and are likely to shift their preferences to want to continue to engage in this way at some level. So, I think some of what we're experiencing now will shift back to the status quo we knew before this health emergency. But I also think some of the changes that were implemented as a contingency, as a response to this environment, are likely to be with us for a long time because they're positive in some ways. They're actually serving a need that individuals have maybe better than the status quo that we had just assumed away for a long time. So I think it is a mixed bag. I do hope that what does stay are those things that allow us to engage more productively and serve better, if you will, moving forward.
Thank you both. So we have a question from Tiana. I had an application in for a program this summer, but it was canceled. Is there a way for us veterans to still receive help in our entrepreneurship journeys during this challenging time? It is more imperative for us now than it has ever been to start our own businesses. So Misty, I think you touched on this, but if you just want to reiterate a few points.
Yeah, definitely. So short answer, yes. So there's definitely going to be ways that you can, we know that it's just as important, if not more important now than ever. So if you're already in the application, as it, as it says in your question, then you'll be getting an email from us, I believe, at the top of next week about a way that you can actually engage in a new online learning program that we're putting together specifically for those applicants to, test it out. And I think that'll be a great opportunity because we have a lot of amazing learning lined up there. In addition to that, something that's open to every person at this point will be the webinars that I mentioned earlier, as well as the workshops that we're also going to be having with some of our amazing speakers that we use for many of our programs. Will be coming in to conduct live workshops and webinars. So more than just folks kind of in a panel, they'll actually be working with folks live, via these Collaborate models. In addition, never hesitate to reach out through the alumni networks and, our post-program support, especially for grads. Ashley and Elvis and the rest of the Arsenal team, stand ready to ask questions and make sure that we get you connected to the specific resources that you're looking for. And of course, check out our guide. But of course, there's going to be ways to still engage. And then, moving forward, we'll be keeping everyone posted on when we can gather again in spaces, but making sure that we have learnings available to you throughout that time.
Thanks, Misty. And we did have two comments come through before we go to our next question. One was, which Nick, I think you responded to, but somebody asked about a website for the work that Nick mentioned with Northwestern. So just for everyone on the call, there is no site yet. The project was just approved by the Army and they're going to launch this summer. So that's a stay tuned. And then second, Dr. Haynie mentioned the ROTC virtual commissioning ceremony today. I know somebody put the link in the chat. But if you want to watch the ROTC virtual commissioning that Dr. Haynie mentioned, you can watch it live at 2 p.m. And again, the link is in the chat box that you see. So our next question is from Robert, and it's specifically for our Onward to Opportunity program. And he asks, as unemployment continues to increase and veterans decide to pivot in their careers, are there thoughts on expanding the eligibility to O2O programs for veterans who have already transitioned past the 180 days?
So thanks, Ashley, and that's a great question, and it's a great clarifying question. So it's important to know that we are a skill bridge program, but only to those that are transitioning. So there's the 180 days prior to your separation. We do not have any time limit once you leave the service. So if you're honorably discharged and you are a veteran of one of the services or a spouse or currently serving in the National Guard Reserve, I highly encourage you to go onto our site and contact one of our fabulous enrollment team who will get you into a cohort. So it's a great question, and I'm glad you asked because it's important for everyone to know that it's a broad community that we serve, and that was done very specifically.
Wonderful, thanks, Mike. Our next question, and again, feel free to jump on as you guys have thoughts, are really what are the biggest needs right now for veterans and military families, and is that a shift? Nick, I'm not sure if you want to take this one first.
Yep. So that's a great question. I think we don't quite know yet, but I will say we've been monitoring needs of veterans and the military community for years now. We actually published an article that came out last fall that looked at over 60 different needs assessments that have been commissioned over the last decade, just to take a look at what are some of the commonalities there. And so I think what we're seeing from some of the recent polling activity is, I would say the basket of needs are still roughly the same, but we're starting to see them impact different segments of the military veteran community, or we're seeing them impact different segments, particularly women veterans and women active duty service members seem to be taking a bigger hit, at least from the early polling data around needs that we've surveyed so far. And of course, we're going to continue to monitor this. We're hoping to launch another poll here later this summer just to start to look at if there are any changes to those. Other demographics too, just to keep in mind that Different age groups are important to take a look at. Whether folks that are younger in transition, who may not have a college degree or the certification or training, those are some potential groups that may be at risk or at greater risk for unemployment. And so we continue to monitor that, but really no noticeable change other than just severity across different groups. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Nick. The next question we have that came through from Ryan is, my venture will probably be primarily internet-based, especially now, but going forward as well. What resources are there for exclusively internet-based businesses? I've been researching SEO strategies, for example. Misty, I'm not sure if you want to hop on this one first.
Got it. Yeah, I got it. First, Ron, I think you're a graduate, so obviously Elvis has a lot of resources too that you can kind of tap into. If you go to the alumni portal, you can get right in there and he can get you connected to a few things. And it looks like Mai's going to have a conversation with you. But to add to that, I was talking about those workshops earlier, and as luck maybe would have it, the first two that we're doing are actually right around a website critique and then also SEO. So we're going to bring in, some of y'all have seen them at NatCons and VWises and Edges, but we'll be bringing in one of IVMF's good friends, Scott Nadzen, who will be talking specifically to both of those points and actually giving you a critique on websites, but also looking at how you as a company can work on your SEO, because as we know right now, internet traffic is way up. Folks are spending a lot more time on websites, spending a lot more time reading through. So not only take advantage of Elvis, because while post-program support says 1 year, we're always there. Post-program support is always open. And then also make sure to keep your eye out for the details around those workshops, and we'll be sending them over to you.
Thanks. I feel like we're pivoting back and forth between O2O and Arsenal, which is great, which means we have both groups on the line. But another question that came in, and Mike Bianchi, I'm not sure if you want to take the lead on this one, but was they're registered for 2 courses to be completed by the due date assigned. Is it possible to finish one course and then start another one in the program?
Wow, another excellent question. So yes. What it is we do ask, and you can work with your advisor. So once you work with your advisor and you get through your curriculum for the pathway that you signed up for, and then you move actually to who you see Ashley and Elvis there into the alumni realm, you will then have the ability to use our entire learning management system and take as many additional courses that you can before that license expires in that 1 year. So yes, you can. We highly encourage it. That's why we take that extra effort in keeping that license open a bit longer. We do ask that you complete the curriculum that you signed up for, and then Ashley and her team will take you from there. So the quick answer is connect with your advisor, and they will make sure that that you're taken care of.
Great.
However, thanks, Ashley. I do want to also annotate, though, it's also an important distinction, is we are only resourced to pay for one certification. So important part to add on to that, while we do encourage you to take as many as possible, and the curriculum itself is highly valuable in and of itself, and we do have a number of our participants who do that. So thank you again.
Thanks. And while we're on O2O, we will stick with it for a second. So I know you mentioned in your remarks that you have seen that increase, over the last few months in that online training. So in your opinion, and anyone else feel free to jump on, what does the future look like for growth industries in terms of hiring efforts? And when companies do begin to hire, how can our current students and graduates on this call differentiate themselves?
So that's an excellent question, and I'll probably lean into Nick a little bit on some of the research. I can talk anecdotally that our team sits on many calls over the last several weeks, and I can tell you that there are companies that are hiring. How we are going about hiring obviously is a bit different. I was just on a call this morning with Nick and his team of the Pittsburgh Veteran Employment Commission, as well as JP Morgan Chase. Everyone is still looking to hire. They're all definitely information technology and the ability to work remotely and independently are clear and key job specifications that we've been hearing, and skills and capabilities that we've been hearing from our employer partners. And as we start to develop our curriculum, we do work right now with our Onward to Your Career to talk about how best to market, brand, and to leverage the information that's out there and the technologies that are out there to improve your chances of obtaining that job that you're looking for. So I don't know if did I answer your question? I hope, and if not, I'd like to ask Nick if he had any color to add.
Thanks, Mike. All right, there we go. Thanks, Mike. I thought you covered it pretty well. Only thing I would just add is that we're continuously trying to monitor what changes are looking like in the labor force. I think Dr. Haynie talked at the top about how this is going to be very different. From or it's unlike anything we've ever seen. It's easy to kind of point back to the Great Recession and how all like the veteran sector mobilized to help support employers in hiring veterans and military spouses, and we continue to do that today. But what we're really trying to continue to look at is where are veterans in the labor force today? How are they? Where are the opportunities in different industries? How's the current situation impacting different industries? And we think it will impact it differently in very different ways than the Great Recession. And so, just looking at the latest jobs report, food, transportation, retail, travel, looking at how our veterans in those industries, how are they adapting and pursuing opportunities with employers in other industries or occupations. But we also know that veterans tend to be employed at greater degrees in STEM fields, which is science, technology, engineering, and math occupations and industries, and those seem to be doing well so far in the economy, and I think that's at least a hopeful sign for the near term. But we continue to work. I work very closely. Our teams work very closely with Mike and Misty, and ensuring that the latest data and the latest insights from research are helping to inform the curriculum to help meet the current and changing demands.
Great, thank you both. And Nick, while we have you here, a question came in from Robert. Do you mind sharing more about the new program from IVMF for veterans interested in running for political office?
Absolutely. Thanks, Robert, for teeing us up. Robert is actually one of our first guinea pigs in a new pilot program called the Veterans Program for Politics and Civic Engagement, and this is a great collaboration with the Maxwell School at Syracuse University, the nation's top public school of public affairs. And so we launched this program for veterans and military spouses and military connected individuals who are really looking to continue their service in after the military in careers in politics and in civic life. And so we launched a program last fall that was a month long. It was a 3-week online train up, followed by an intensive week-long residency during Veterans Day week. We had just shy of 24 veterans from all over the country come and participate in that program. We leveraged a mix of different faculty from Syracuse University, as well as practitioners in politics from both sides of the aisle. I think we had 6 mayors from all over the country come in and participate. A number of different folks that work in campaigning and polling, and it was really heartening to be a part of that very first program. So we've actually opened up applications for this year's program. And you can find that on our website as well as the Maxwell School's website, and we'd be happy to send you the link to that. We've done a couple of vet nets with Elvis as well to help promote that work, and we're excited to bring the next cohort in. And we've also learned a lot from that program, just in terms of what the demand looks like out there. And so we're looking to tweak and make some provide some different offerings to folks that are at different stages in their journey, similar to very much how Misty and her team provide and tailor training to meet folks where they're at in their entrepreneurial journey. We've learned very much the same, some of the same lessons that folks are at different stages, and just exploring what a career might look like in politics to those that are seasoned campaigners or political staffers that are gearing up to run a race in an upcoming election. And so stay tuned, and we'd be happy to follow up with more detailed questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Nick. And we're about 4 minutes until the top of the hour. So I just want to ask all of our speakers, Mike, Maureen, Mike, Misty, and Nick, any last minute thoughts, comments, if you would have any advice that you would give our, veterans and military families during this time, or just anything that you want to leave the audience with.
So this is Mike. I'll say one thing, and it's more of an ask for everybody than it is advice. I would ask all of you to think about how you can have each other's backs through all this. I think a lot of what we do is focused on community. We talk about ourselves as a community, that community of veterans, military connected families, and we know for a fact there are a lot of people struggling right now. So the extent to which we can look out for each other, I think, is important.
Thanks, Mike. Anyone else have any last minute comments before we close out here today? Maureen?
I don't think I could say it better than that. I said, as I said at the beginning, make sure that you reach out to us if there's anything that you're looking for that you think we can be helpful with, and we're happy to help you try to solve that problem.
Great, thank you. So with that, I just want to thank all of our speakers for being with us today, as well as our audience. If we were unable to get to your question, or you think of something after the fact, always reach out to us. You can follow up with us at vets@syr.edu, as we would love to continue the conversation. So after this webinar today, we will be sending out a very brief post-event survey and ask that you please take 2 minutes to fill it out, as it will help us to continue to provide valuable content, resources, and information to you. Again, thank you for joining us today, and we hope you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy during this time. Thanks, everyone.